Buzz Williams' game plan has to be better if the Terps want to beat Ohio State.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you guys for making us part of your day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. And if you're a new customer, bet just $5 and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Maryland's Buzz Williams, head coach Buzz Williams, has to come up with a better game plan if the Terps want any chance at beating Ohio State tonight. So obviously we know that Maryland basketball plays Ohio State in a couple hours, and I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a preview and what I think about the game. And I think a lot of you guys will see this before the game, but where I think this game's winnable, and I think we'll talk a little bit more about the spread later, but it's not a game that's like Maryland's 20-point underdogs like we've been throughout the season. Like what? Against Purdue, we were like 18-point underdogs. There's some other games where we were like 17-point underdogs, like 15-point underdogs. We were definitely pretty heavily not favored, and the odds were definitely against us. And this Ohio State game is, I don't know if I want to say quite winnable, but I think it would not be that crazy is basically what I'm saying for Maryland to win this game. I think it's winnable in terms of Maryland standard. Now, we're not expected to win, but we haven't been expected to win very many games this season, and you guys know what I'm trying to say. It's a winnable-ish game, we'll say. Winnable-ish. A game for Maryland basketball, which we don't have too many of those this season. When you go through Maryland's schedule, games that I would say actually are winnable-ish in the Big Ten that we've played so far, very few. That game we won against Penn State was definitely a winnable. Other than that, I don't know if there's maybe Oregon, who we played earlier was winnable-ish. Other than that, there hasn't been a ton of teams that I've saying are winnable-ish for Maryland basketball, just where our talent is, just where our team is at. And this game against Ohio State, I think, is winnable. And if Buzz Williams has a better game plan than what he has had over the last couple of games against some of the opponents that we have played, I think Maryland could be in this game down the stretch. No guarantee we win it, but if he has a better game plan than he did against Purdue and that he did against Michigan State, then I think there's a chance. And not just a better, but like drastically better. Like we lost 48-91 to Michigan State. And I won't try and get off topic too much, but I just watched Michigan State lose to Minnesota. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Minnesota had a well-coached team, not an insanely talented Minnesota team, but they have some good pieces, some solid players, and they just beat Michigan State. Meanwhile, we're losing by 40. Same thing against Purdue. We lost by 30. I've seen some teams be able to get at Purdue, be able to beat Purdue. And so my thing is Buzz Williams' game plan has to be better. What we're telling the players, the spots we're putting the players in, the rotation, the starting lineup, what kind of offense we're running, the defensive scout, everything together has to be better to give us a chance to not lose by 40. Because when you combine a team that's, one, not super talented, which I think is the reality of Maryland basketball this season, we're not super talented, especially offensively. And defensively, we haven't really shown up either. Like that Michigan State team, I don't even think is that crazy offensively. Like I know they're ranked pretty high. They're going to drop a little bit, but I don't think they're like crazy offensively. 91 points to Michigan State's a lot. 89 to Illinois is a lot. 93 to Purdue's a lot. 88 to USC is a lot. Like 84 to Indiana. Like we've been giving up a lot of points as well. And so you can't be bad on both sides of the ball in college basketball. College basketball, you can get away with being bad on one side and still winning games. The NBA is a little bit different. But in college basketball, you can get away with being not as good on one side of the ball and staying in games. It definitely happens. We see it all the time. Like I don't think Michigan State's great offensively, but they've won a lot of games for being organized and being good defensively. And this game against Ohio State, I think, is exactly that. And when I talk about Buzz Williams' game plan, it has to be better. And I think it starts with the rotation for Maryland basketball. I don't know what the heck Buzz Williams been doing this year with the rotation. It's different every single game. It feels like some games he trusts different players, some games he doesn't. I haven't been able to figure out what he's been doing with the rotation. He's tried so many different combinations, and it's like, to me, I'm like, dang, man, like I feel like you're overthinking it a little bit. Like Miles Rice, I was begging for him to enter the starting lineup, but he only played 17 minutes, even though he started. George Turkson was getting subbed out right away after taking the jump ball. I'm sitting here like, what the heck is going on with this rotation? It feels unorganized. It feels like we're just throwing things together instead of letting anything kind of come together. Like even Elijah Sanders only played 13 minutes against Purdue. Miles Rice started only 17 minutes. It's so up and down each game. You just don't know who's going to play, who's not going to play a lot. And I understand we haven't been very good this year, but to me, I think there's something to be said that, yeah, you try and find the right lineup and you might change some things up during the season, but there's something to be said. You never allow your team to get in a rhythm. You never let your team have roles. And I think that's part of the game plan that has really hurt us in games is the lineup. And it has to be better against Ohio State. I think it needs to be more organized, more thought out. The starting five, like let's start our best five. Like if we're going to start Miles Rice, like let's ride with Miles Rice, even if he's not having the best shooting day ever. Like I think we're kind of messing with people's confidence, and I think that game plan needs to get better. And so I think it starts with the starting lineup. I think this is where I would go, and I think he should go, and this is part of the game plan. I think Solomon Washington, Elijah Sanders down low, and then I think Diggy Coy at the point guard works, Darius Adams at the 3. And then I'm okay with Andre Mills starting, but I don't like watching I don't mind Miles Rice starting, but I don't think there's a point in starting him if you don't trust him to play starting minutes, if you don't trust him down the stretch, and that's just messing with the kid. I wouldn't mind Andre Mills sliding in there. And then if you're going to start Miles Rice, stay with him. Show some confidence in him. He's a really good offensive player. We wanted him here for a reason. I know he hasn't had a good year, but he's not just here just because. And so I think that part of the game plan needs to get better. And then we have to figure things out defensively. I don't know if we need to play some zone, even though I feel like that's not really the Buzz Williams way. I don't know if we need to run a box and one like old school basketball. I don't know exactly. That's not my job. But I will tell you that giving up the amount of points that we have to some of these teams isn't acceptable. We have to figure out matchups better. We have to figure out how to play help defense better. And I think one thing that has really showed up to me is the scout hasn't been very good. And I know as a college athlete, you get a pretty detailed scout and you talk about it all week. But when you play Purdue and Fletcher Lawyer, who we know for the last couple of years has been arguably, like I would say, one of the best shooters in college basketball. And when he shoots 7 to 10 from the three-point line, I'm going to look at it and be like, well, do we not prepare for this? Did we not give a good scout? Like, did we not know this coming into the game? Like, how does Fletcher Lawyer get 7 to 10 from the three-point shot? Like, to me, that game plan absolutely has to be better. And against Ohio State, it's going to be the kid, John Mobley, shoots by far – or not by far, but the highest percentage on their team from 3 with taking a lot of attempts, him and the point guard, Bruce Thornton, but John Mobley's kind of known as a shooter. He shoots 40% from the three-point line, which is really high. And so if you're not out on him, if you don't know how we're guarding him, that's not going to go well. That's not going to fare well. So I think the scout needs to be better. We need to understand what Bruce Thornton likes to do as a player. We need to understand what John Mobley likes to do as a player. We need to understand that more going into the game. So I think those couple of things have to be better. And you talk about the offense side of the ball. I think that's the hardest part to kind of figure out because a lot of it you just can't teach and coach. You can run specific sets, and I think Maryland basketball can do a much better job of this, whether it's like a pin down for Darius Adams or getting some screen and roll looks, like different things like that. I think you can try and like run more off ball cuts, different things like that, where I feel like Maryland, a team that's not very talented one-on-one, depends way too much on the one-on-one game instead of actually running plays, instead of actually having a fluid offense. And I think, to me, that's a game plan thing. And Maryland, I feel like a lot of games, is near the bottom in assist and doesn't pass the ball very well compared to other teams. And that'll have to be better if Maryland wants a chance to beat Ohio State. So I honestly think the game plan just needs to be better with Buzz Williams. He needs to figure it out for us to have any opportunity to win this game, because it's been pretty terrible this year, I would argue. Let's talk about Maryland football. I'm going to give you guys my top 3 most interesting games heading into next year. Not the hardest, not the easiest. Talk about the most interesting games heading into next year. We'll talk about that next.
I'm Kalia Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. Number 1 ranked UConn dominated Tennessee 96-66, turning a halftime tie into a historic win and avenging last season's loss by delivering the largest margin in the rivalry's history. AZ Fudd had 27 points and Sarah Strong added 26 as the Huskies remain perfect on the season, reminding everyone why they are the reigning national champions. In the Big Ten, number 2 UCLA rolled past number 8 Iowa 88-65, powered by 22 points from Angela Dukeledge and a huge advantage in the paint, staking their claim as a national threat. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts that same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
So Maryland's football schedule heading into next year, and I want to talk about the most intriguing games next year for Maryland football, because I think there's a lot of interesting ones on the schedule. There's a couple that I think are intriguing. And remember, this isn't me saying like these are the teams that I think are the best, or these are the teams that I think are going to be easiest to beat. It's the most intriguing, the most interesting games of the year, the ones that I think we should pay a lot of attention to, just because there's like other components to it that are kind of different than the normal game. And I think the number 1 most intriguing game on our schedule is against Virginia Tech. That game is going to be so interesting. One, it's our first real game of the year. We're going to have, or not real game. I think UConn could be really good. Hampton, we should be pretty good. UConn could be a tricky game. That could be a trap game for sure. But it's our first opponent that has, I would say, similar or better talent than us. The Virginia Tech roster definitely has some guys. We'll see how they actually end up being. But it's the first opponent that has similar or greater talent than us. I think that's fair to say. And also opponents that is in the DMV area for one. So I think that's always interesting when you play at school that's kind of in the DMV. I know it's not like actually in the DMV, but when you think about football recruiting, you got to kind of make a bigger search than what is just what I know a lot of you guys who live in the DMV area are going to be like, it's just the DC, Maryland, Virginia, like inner area. It's not farther down Virginia. I know Virginia Tech's a little bit farther down, but when you think about football recruiting, thinking about really the whole state of Virginia and the whole state of Maryland. And obviously we recruit a lot of their same players. And so it's interesting in that way. But I think the most interesting part about it, intriguing part about it, is James Franklin. He used to be on the Maryland staff. I think he's kind of, ever since he was at Penn State, he didn't like Maryland, and I felt like that wasn't much of a secret. He didn't like Maryland, thought he was supposed to be the head coach of Maryland, whatever the case is, and now he's at Virginia Tech building out this new program, and there's going to be a lot of eyes on that Virginia Tech team. A lot of people are interested in that team, how they're going to be, and September 19th, they play Maryland, another team that we think is going to be better this year. I think that game is so intriguing. I think that game is going to be so interesting for Maryland football. And I'm really excited to see it, to be completely honest. And I think that's probably our most intriguing game of the year in terms of just the different components. James Franklin, it being kind of like a DMV game. I think that game's going to be awesome for Maryland football, and I'm excited to kind of see it. And then someone else that I think is going to be a really intriguing game, I'll be the second most interesting game of the year, is Penn State. What's the vibe in Happy Valley? I don't know. We'll know by the end of the season because it is our last game of the year. But I think in terms of Penn State, similar as James Franklin, they get this new coach in Matt Campbell coming from Iowa State. And I think the question is, are they going to continue to be a Big Ten powerhouse? Or is this a game that is now winnable for Maryland football? I think it's interesting in that type of way because I think a lot of the times with James Franklin, I don't know what about it or what it was about Franklin, but he had those guys ready to play Maryland. Like I said, I don't know if it's because he didn't like us or if their team just kind of I felt like they always did kind of match up well against us, but they wouldn't even be as good against other teams. But when they would play Maryland, it would be bad. And so now is Penn State a team that drops, or do they improve? Like, what's the deal with them? I think that's going to be one of the most intriguing games of the year. They have a new QB as well that I think should be interesting. They bring in a ton of players from Iowa State in the transfer portal. So we'll see how that ends up working. But like, I think to me, that's the second game on this list. And I know we'll kind of have a better idea of where they're at just because it'll be pretty far into the season. But I'm interested. I kind of want to see how this thing goes. You know, they have a ton, like people were calling it what? The Penn State Cyclones because of how many Iowa State players there are. But I think that's going to be definitely a pretty interesting game for Maryland football. They're bringing the kid Rocco back from Iowa State, see how good he is at the end of the year. So I do think that is going to be one of the more interesting ones of the season with the new head coach. And I'm excited to watch that one, even though it's at the end of the season. And I think the third one, you could argue a couple different ways. You could probably say Ohio State's interesting, but I kind of want to get away from them. There's a couple others, but I'm going to actually say UCLA because they started turning it on last year and they did beat us last year, 17-20. They were kind of America's team for a second. I felt like all on my Twitter, people were excited about UCLA and kind of what they were doing and kind of how they were improving after they beat Penn State in that game. And they bring in this new coach, Bob Chesney, who was hired this offseason, and people are kind of interested about him as well. And so I think the game against UCLA is definitely one of the more interesting games of the season just because they beat us. Like I said, new head coach is always going to definitely be interesting. And then they also have their quarterback, Nico. I don't even want to try and say his last name, but you guys know the kid, Nico. Really talented kid, has all the traits to be one of the better quarterbacks probably in the Big Ten. NFL draft will definitely be on his radar after this season. The kid that came from Tennessee had a up and down year last year, did some good things. I thought turned it up in moments, but also I thought didn't start very well. We know we're going to see him again. Another season of him I think is going to be really interesting. So I think the game against UCLA could be one of the more intriguing games on the schedule, and that's what I'm excited to watch. But those are the three that I think are most interesting, most intriguing. Not the hardest, not the easiest, not the ones I think we can win. Those are the ones that I just think have the biggest storylines behind it and people will care about, or the most interesting factors, whatever the case is. I'm excited to watch those games, and I think different things could happen for Maryland football in those. So I'm going to be excited about that. Let's talk about Maryland football spread heading into the game against Ohio State. Finally, not double-digit underdogs. We'll talk about that next. Let's be real. Managing your finances can feel overwhelming. Between subscriptions you forgot about, bills that keep going up, and trying to figure out where all your money actually goes each month. It's easy to feel like you're losing control? And who has time to track every transaction or hunt down hidden fees? That's where Rocket Money comes in, the personal finance app that helps you take control. It finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spendings, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. I was shocked when Rocket Money showed me I was paying for all these different subscriptions that I completely forgot about. It's already saved me money. I love how it tracks all my subscriptions and lets me cancel them right in the app with just a few taps. No more hunting down customer service numbers. And you can set budgets and goals and get personalized insights and receive real-time alerts for large transactions, upcoming bills, and low balances. It even consolidates your checking, savings, loans, and investments in a single dashboard so you get a clear view of your entire financial picture. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goal faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/locked on. That's rocketmoney.com/locked on. rocketmoney.com/locked on. Maryland basketball is finally not a double-digit underdog against Ohio State. And so I wanted to talk about the spread because I think it's interesting. And it kind of goes to my point earlier where if Maryland plays decently, or I don't even want to say decently well, if they play well, which is probably just decent when you're really watching it because they're good is a lot of people's just okay, but whatever. If they play well, there's a chance that they could win this game and get their second Big Ten win. Now, I was reading an article. It was like they're playing for pride, which is true and not really a spot that we want to be as fans watching and talking and chatting about the game and having opinions. You don't ever want to be talking about a team that's playing for pride, but that's where we're at. And the spread is finally not double digits. I feel like for the past couple of games, and we've gotten through the big gauntlet part of our schedule. I think it does get a lot easier from here. But the past couple of games, we've been double-digit underdogs, I feel like right? Like pretty much all the games that we've played in over the last couple of ones. Like against Purdue, we definitely were. Against Michigan State, we definitely were. And against Illinois, we definitely were. The past three games before or after the Penn State game, all definitely double-digit underdogs for sure for Maryland. So that's definitely something that I'm going to be looking at. And against Ohio State, the spread is 7, which I think is an interesting number. I think it makes sense. I think this Ohio State team, it kind of symbolizes where they're at. They're a good team. They're solid. And they need to win this game a lot more than we need to win it. And I think 7 points is kind of, I mean, I always say this, like, I'm not going to question Vegas's number. I still don't know exactly how they come up with these lines. It's got to be a lot of computer, different factors, but the lines are always interesting. And I think they always, like, they're sharp. And it's why people don't win money when they bet and stuff like that. And so I think that when a line kind of symbolizes a lot where how good you kind of play, where your team's at in terms of just are they playing up to their talent. And the 7 points, I think, is something that, like, down the stretch, you hope Maryland's in this game. Like, I don't see – there's not a world where Maryland blows out Ohio State. Like, I just don't see that happening, like, in any universe, to be completely honest. I just don't see us blowing out a team. I know we blew out Penn State, but I'm not really counting that. We're not blowing out a team. Like, that's just probably not going to happen in the Big Ten schedule. And so it's either going to be we get blown out in this game against Ohio State and they cover the 7, or we keep it close. There's no like Maryland wins by 8. It's either we win by or Ohio State wins by 3 or 4, or we somehow find the upset on the final possession and Diggy Coy hits a 3 to win it. Like that's kind of how I see it going. And so my thing is you just got to keep it close. The Ohio State team hasn't been awesome down the stretch in basketball games. Like they've lost when I was looking at through their scores, seeing some of their games, they've lost some close games down the stretch. And so if you get them to get the score to be rather close down the stretch, you can beat them. Like they've lost some games down the stretch. Like they lost by 3 to Nebraska. They lost a close game down the stretch against Washington by 7. Like they lost by 1 to UNC. They've lost some close games down the stretch. They lost to Pitt by 1 earlier on the season. And so if you keep it close against this team, then there's a good chance that down the stretch, if it's close, Maryland basketball could win the game. Now, I don't think Maryland's great at all down the stretch, but we actually haven't really seen it at the same time. So I'll be interested in see what happens there, but we'll see exactly what happens. But I'm excited for this game for Maryland basketball. That's all we have for today. Thank you guys for listening to Locked On Terps. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you guys for listening to Locked On Terps.